The space heater in the corner worked with the stubborn hum of something old but unwilling to quit, its orange coil glowing behind the dull metal grate. Warmth radiated unevenly from it, heavy and dry, smelling faintly of heated dust and metal. The clinic room was a cube of pale green walls and practical furniture, lit by fluorescent tubes that hissed and buzzed with the quiet authority of things that had been switched on since morning. Every surface had that faint gleam of disinfectant. The steel handles on the cabinets, the counter where a half-empty bottle of sanitizer stood sentry, the sink basin with its spotless chrome tap. Beyond the curtain, the world of the clinic moved in soft, erratic pulses. The reception phone rang, abrupt and urgent, then was silenced by a brisk voice. Footsteps passed, some slow and squeaky, others quick and firm. A child laughed briefly, then coughed. The paper printer at the front desk chattered out a sheaf of forms. All of it reached this little space as muffled background, a reminder that life went on elsewhere, indifferent to whatever was about to happen here. On the padded vinyl of the exam table sat 8-year-old Ellie Wren. She was perched at the edge, legs too short to reach the footrest, her boots suspended a few inches above the floor. The boots, brown leather with frayed stitching near the toes and a smear of dried mud across one side, had the tired look of something that had walked through too many puddles. Every so often, her right heel tapped the metal frame of the table with a hollow ting, not restless tapping, not rhythmic, just once in a while, as if checking that the floor was still there. She wore a faded sweater the color of oatmeal, sleeves pushed up just enough to show thin wrists. Her right hand was pressed against her belly, fingers spread slightly, palm flat as though she were holding something in place beneath the fabric. Her left hand rested on her lap, curled into a loose fist. She was watching the floor, chin tucked, shoulders drawn inward, just enough to suggest she wished she could vanish without making a sound. Dr. Michael Harrow rolled his stool closer, the wheels giving a small protest squeak. His body felt the weight of the day, the twinge between his shoulder blades from leaning over patients, the scratch in his throat from repeating the same explanations to different worried parents. But he'd been doing this long enough to know when to slow down, to let fatigue take a back seat. The girl's posture, her quiet, the hand on her belly, all of it told him that this wasn't the kind of visit you rushed. "What seems to be the trouble today, Ellie?" he asked, his voice soft, pitched low to make the question feel safe. It was the tone he'd used for 20 years to coax the truth from children. Not the stern demand of a teacher, not the breezy chatter of a stranger, but the steady curiosity of someone who planned to sit and listen. Ellie's mother, seated in the plastic chair in the corner, answered instead. "She says her stomach hurts. Started this morning." Her coat was still zipped, beads of melted snow clinging to the cuffs. She sat upright, her purse balanced on her knees, one hand gripping the strap like it was a lifeline. Ellie didn't move her eyes from the floor. Then, as though a thought had to travel the long way from her stomach to her mouth, she lifted her gaze. Her eyes were wide and dark, glistening in the fluorescent light. "My belly's moving," she said, almost too quietly to hear. Michael paused with his stethoscope halfway out of his coat pocket. The words hung there, unshaped by any context he could easily name. "Moving," he repeated, making the word slow, careful. She nodded once, the movement barely more than a tilt. "Like there's something inside." He glanced at the mother for a hint of explanation, a shrug, a smirk, anything. She didn't meet his eyes. "She's been watching too many weird videos online," she said quickly, the words tumbling together. "It's probably just gas, or she's nervous. Her speed, the way gas came out." He lifted the pulse oximeter and warmed the clip between his palms, a reflex learned from 1,000 cold, impatient devices. "Finger here," he said, and she obeyed, small hand steady. The numbers sprang to life, 99%. "Perfect," he said, and smiled for real. "Your lungs are doing their job. That's good news." The mother exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her coat creaked as she adjusted in the chair. She hadn't taken it off yet. She hadn't decided they were staying. Her purse strap lay twisted in her lap from being wound and unwound. Snowmelt on the cuffs of her sleeves had dried into a lace of salt. Michael kept going with the ritual because rituals smooth stone. "Any fever at home?" he asked. "No," the mother answered quickly. "We'd have gone to urgent care if—" "We are urgent care," Mara said lightly, and the mother shot her a look that was half a glare, half a laugh she wouldn't give. "Any vomiting, Ellie?" Michael asked. She shook her head. "No." "Any trouble using the bathroom?" Her head tilt considered honesty. "No." "Did you bump your tummy? Fall? Jump off something a little high?" He made the last sound like an adventure, so if there was a confession it could walk out smiling. "No," she said, the answer immediate and plain. The sweater lifted itself in a tiny swell, a ripple that traveled an inch and faded. It was delicate but unmistakable, like a wind crossing tall grass. Mara's eyes flicked to it. Michael's palm met it without seeming to move, a soft open-handed rest just above the hem. He felt the answer, a nudge from within, not a twitch but a decision, tender and insistent. He took his hand away and reached for the stethoscope. He warmed the diaphragm on his palm until it no longer felt like a coin pulled from snow. "May I lift just a bit?" he asked, and waited for the nod. He slipped the cold circle beneath the sweater's hem to rest on the cotton undershirt and listened. Rooms recede when doctors listen. The hum of the heater dropped back. The noise of the hallway fell into distance. He heard air travel through a child's lungs, smooth, symmetrical. He heard the soft, wet whispers of bowel sounds rolling quietly through their endless work. He heard a heart that ran a little fast, but met every beat cleanly. He slid the stethoscope a breath to the left. A thud, muted, positional, touched metal for a single beat, as if something had bumped the other side of a closed door. He froze, not in fear but in interest, the way a deer freezes to gather every sound. He waited nothing. He moved the disc again, breathed with the child, counted to 6 past the next exhale, and heard only the sounds of a healthy small body. He withdrew the stethoscope, let the sweater fall. "Thank you," he said. Mara had stopped fussing with the counter. Her nose wrinkled slightly the way people's do when they smell cinnamon out of season. She turned an inch, eyes scanning for a source she knew better than to name. The scent was faint, so faint it could vanish if challenged. Warm, slightly sweet, not synthetic. Clean cotton that had been close to something living. Michael filed it. Signs never walk in alone. They bring their friends. The movement, the scratch. Had it been a scratch, the seam stretched a little at the side from pressure outward. The smell. The mother's speed to say no. The girl's careful silence that wasn't fear so much as protection. "Ellie," he said, soft as a bedtime story. "Sometimes our bodies can feel like there's something crawling even if there's not. A muscle twitch, a nerve letting us know it's there. Does it feel like that?" She shook her head. "It feels like—" She glanced at her mother, then back as if the word itself might get her in trouble. "Like a little thing," she said finally. She held her thumb and forefinger a small distance apart, then seemed to regret the gesture and folded her hands. The mother's chair shifted with a squeak as she moved forward a little. "She's 8, she said. "She doesn't know the words for gas pains." Michael smiled gently. 8-year-olds know a lot of words, he said, and when they don't, they make good ones. He kept his tone easy, kept his breathing slow, let the room take his pace. "Tell me about breakfast." "Toast," Ellie said. "Butter, and a little honey. And dinner last night?" "Noodles," she said, and brightened briefly. "With butter and salt. That's a very strong culinary tradition," Michael said gravely. "Noodles with butter and salt has kept civilizations from falling." It earned a blink of a smile that was gone as soon as it landed. "Any candy lately?" "Gummies. Gum a friend gave you. Anything you weren't sure you were supposed to have, but you had anyway, because it was rainbow-colored?" She shook her head, serious. "No. Any coins missing from your mom's purse?" he asked, eyebrows up in mock accusation. The mother's hand went to the purse reflexively. "Hey, I'm conducting science," Michael said. Then to Ellie, "Coins are a very respectable source of research for 8-year-olds. Ellie's lips parted. Considering this universe where stealing quarters was scientific, she shook her head again. "No coins." All right, he took a breath and shifted the lane of questions gently. Any animals around? Not at home necessarily, outside. Alley cats, a neighbor's dog. A bird that seemed lost? The mother's cheeks moved in a way that wasn't quite a flinch. We don't have pets, she said. Our lease doesn't allow it. Leases, Michael said, as if the word itself were a grey cloud best ignored. Understood. He turned the focus back to Ellie. Sometimes kids keep something under their clothes because it's important to them. Not food, not coins, a note, a lucky thing, a tiny toy, something from a friend. If there is anything like that, I won't be mad. I just need to know it's not something that could hurt you. Ellie stared at him. In that look, he saw the school hallway where secrets are currency. The bedroom closet that holds the outlawed treasure. The winter morning where right and wrong braided together like scarf fringe. Her hand pressed subtly harder to her abdomen, protective. No, she said, but the word trembled on its last consonant. Mara distracted the tension with the familiar choreography of a thermometer. Ear, please, she said, and the small device beeped almost as soon as it seated. 98.6, gold star, Michael said. No fever, good oxygen, decent pressure. That all argues against a big, scary problem. He let that sentence meet the mother's eyes and stay there. But the movement is real. I felt it. He kept his tone matter of fact, not alarmist. When something is moving in a belly that shouldn't be, we need a picture. A quick abdominal x-ray. No, the mother said at once. But now the no arrived wrapped in explanation. She's not sick. You said she's not showing signs of anything. I said she's not showing signs of shock or infection, he corrected gently. That's good news, but I didn't say nothing's wrong. The mother's mouth tightened. She was a woman built by winters. A coat that looked a little too thin for February. A jaw that had learned how to clamp and hold. A gaze that flicked to exits before it trusted rooms. We're not doing an x-ray, she said. Not louder but heavier. Michael nodded genuinely. Thank you for telling me what you don't want. He let that sit. Respect is friction solvent. Could you tell me why? Radiation, she said, like it was a fence post she could stand behind. And we don't have time. I need to get back to work. The dose would be very low, he said, and didn't reach for the statistics yet. Numbers don't open locked doors, they rattle the knob. And we can move quickly. I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't think it mattered. Her eyes flashed. I think you'd suggest a lot of things if you thought it mattered. True, he said simply. That's the job. The heater ratcheted a notch louder, or perhaps the room got quieter around it. The smell, the one neither adult had named, breathed a little closer. Clean cotton warmed by skin, the mild fleeting musk of something that had been outdoors and recently rescued from cold. Mara's attention snagged on a small detail. She stepped nearer the table and, under the pretense of straightening the paper sheet, glanced at the side seam of Ellie's sweater. Doctor, she said, labels tucked neatly behind tone. This hem's pulled. See the strain here? And that spot. Michael looked. There was a thumbprint of darker knit near the seam. Not quite mud. Not quite anything else. He could imagine it. A small damp thing held inside against a point of resistance, moving, leaving its print. He knelt. Because adult eyes at a child's level are less frightening, and because this angle worked better for telling the truth. Ellie, I felt the movement with my hand. I heard the little sound just now. I think there may be something under your shirt that you're trying to keep safe. He said safe like a password. If that's true, we can help. But I need to see it with my eyes. Her throat worked. She looked at her mother, a look full of history ordinary waiting rooms never witness. Rent due dates, lunches packed, a laugh they shared over a ridiculous commercial, a hand held too tight in a crosswalk on a day when a car swerved. The mother looked back, and in that one pass of sight 100 decisions were rehearsed and discarded. No, the mother said eventually, but softer. It wasn't a door slamming. It was a door someone leaned on, tired. No x-ray. I'm not asking for the x-ray now, Michael said. I'm asking to look at the skin. I'll lift the hem just a little. If there's nothing there, we'll talk about pictures. If there is, we'll handle it together. No one gets in trouble for the truth in this room." Mara's hand rested on the back of the chair, a grounding touch that wasn't on anyone. "We're good at taking care of small things," she said. Her voice the tone you use with skittish animals and parents on the edge. "And we're very quiet." The air held them. Ellie's fingers crept to the bottom of her sweater and pinched the fabric. She didn't lift it yet. She felt for the invisible line where bravery starts and fear ends. Her breath came faster. Under her palm, something shifted again, faint and insistent, as if the hidden thing had decided on its own that secrecy was no longer a wise plan. Michael, feeling the slope beneath them tilt toward decision, changed tactics. "I'm going to step outside for 1 minute," he said, voice low. "No more. I'll leave the curtain closed. You can talk. If you decide to show me, I'll be here. If not, we'll find another way to make sure you're safe. But I want you to have that minute." The mother's mouth opened, ready to protest, then closed again. She nodded once. It was not a capitulation. It was a truce between fear and care. Mara's hand was already on the curtain. Michael gave Ellie a small, solemn nod as if he were leaving her in charge of the room. Then he stepped out. The hallway greeted them with fluorescent color, the squeak of shoes, the clipped dispatch of the front desk printer. Michael leaned against the wall just outside the curtain and stared at the pediatric dosing chart mounted there, liquid amoxicillin conversions in cheerful fonts, and let his mind do the math he'd been avoiding. Internal movement plus faint scratching plus warm organic scent equals... He didn't finish the equation. He didn't have to. His chest loosened half a notch. His training tightened the other half. Warm, fragile things could crash as fast as cold, dangerous ones. Mara stood at his shoulder, looking not at him but towards the curtain, as if sight could pass through fabric when concern was bright enough. "You think," she began. "I think there's something alive under there," he said, keeping his voice low enough to disappear into the hallway's hiss of every day. Not a medical something," she said. "Not the kind I'd call a surgeon for." The air between cloth and skin warmed his hands, faintly moist from the trapped heat of body and something else. Just before he reached the point of full reveal, a flicker of movement, Michael gave her the smallest of nods. Alive. He straightened, looking at both of them. "All right," he said, voice steady. "I'm going to ask one more time. Is there something under your shirt you're trying to keep safe?"